Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Dzkan Toys, where I do reviews and share my thoughts on some of my favorite new releases. Today we'll be looking at the S.H.Figuarts Piccolo, which is recently released. So let's check out the box and get the unboxing started. Alright, here we have our S.H.Figuarts Piccolo unboxed. Technically, he should be called the 2.0 version, as we had a Piccolo a long time ago. This is the one with the improved design as well as the articulation. So let's start with the background information of the company as well as the character per usual. S.H.Figuarts. For longtime collectors, you guys would know it is known as Simple Style Heroic Action Figures and Arts, more commonly known as S.H.Figuarts. It's a popular line of high-quality collectible figures made by Tamashii Nations, a specialized division within Bandai. As for the character Piccolo, he's probably one of my favorite in terms of design from the original Dragon Ball series. The Piccolo we see here is known as Piccolo Jr., or usually just Piccolo. He's a Namekian warrior and the final child and reincarnation of King Piccolo, later becoming the reunification of the nameless Namekian after fusing with Kami on Earth. Originally, Piccolo was the main antagonist of the final saga of the original Dragon Ball, but beginning with Dragon Ball Z, starting with the Sang saga, he slowly becomes an anti-hero and eventually becomes part of the Dragon Ball team that we come to know and love. He's also the mentor to Goku's son, which is Son Gohan. So pretty much by now in the series, we might as well call Piccolo Gohan's real dad. That's like an ongoing joke in the Dragon Ball series. But anyways, aside from the basic introduction, let's go over the aesthetics and paint job of the figure. In terms of the aesthetics and paint job, this version of Piccolo is definitely an improvement compared to the original one. First, I would just like to mention that this figure of Piccolo actually came straight from the box like this. We have the crossed arm attachment already attached to Piccolo. We do have accessories to change his arms into the individual ones, but just based on this look, Piccolo looks great and jumped straight from the manga or anime. Otherwise, in terms of the aesthetics, the main difference between this one and the original one is the articulation. As we can see, the Piccolo over here has the new 2.0 body. I believe pretty much it is easy for Bandai / Tamashii Nation to make this figure because it is basically the King Piccolo figure that we had from the Dragon Ball line. They made it into a smaller version and hence we get Piccolo over here. Otherwise, the design between this one and the bigger King Piccolo figure is pretty much the same for the base body. Starting with the top of this Piccolo figure, we have his unique headgear design. It is done in white and we have the signature purple color for the top of the headgear. Although the headgear is done in the simple white, similarly to the cape of the rest of the body, we do have some nice textures over here which represent the headgear very nicely, as it looks like it is being wrapped physically around the head. Moving down to the facial details, it is definitely an improvement compared to the original Piccolo that came out at the very beginning of the S.H.Figuarts line, if I remembered correctly. Since then to now, Bandai Tamashii Nations definitely improved in terms of their molding and paint work. So this Piccolo face looks more similar or looks more ideal and represents the Piccolo that we see from the anime and manga much better. So this Piccolo face represents the original Piccolo from the manga and anime much more faithfully. Moving down to the shoulders and the upper body, we can see that Piccolo over here has his signature cape gear on. So this is a big improvement compared to the original one, as we have a new molding. Again, it looks very detailed, although it's just in this plain white color. I do wish there could have been a little bit more shading on it, but overall it still looks great with all of the creases molded onto the cape gear itself. And Piccolo can do his signature look, where basically his mouth is hidden beneath the cape gear, which makes him look very mean and ready for battle. I have just swapped on the other arms for Piccolo and switched off the crossed arm accessory, which I can show you guys later again in the accessory segment. But this is just to show off the design of the arm better once they're spread out. So we do have the signature style of Piccolo's arm, which is the Namekian body from the Dragon Ball series. We have the main body in the signature green Piccolo color, but we have these patches which is done in these light pink design with red lines. So this is the signature design of Namekian's arms, and over here they did it pretty well. Even looking closely, I don't see too much of a paint defect or mold defect, so this part I really enjoy. Here's another closer look at the design of the arms. So we do have these lines as well at the green parts, which represents the alien-like body of Piccolo very nicely. Moving down to the lower half of the design, we have his signature suit done in this sort of dark purple color, but we do have a light blue to separate the waist section as his signature belt. Other than that, there's not much other colors here. Moving further down, again, the pants is done in this dark purple color. We do have some nice creases over here molded in. Again, I believe this may just be the same design as the King Piccolo figure that we got earlier, and it is just a smaller version of that mold. But correct me if I'm wrong, it may be a brand new mold, but for me, it looks quite similar. Moving down to the feet section, we have the light brown for Piccolo's signature shoe style, but the nice details that we can see over here is that in between the shoes and the pants, we do have some exposed skin of Piccolo's body, which is seen in this green color, along with the signature pink and the red lines for the skin design of Piccolo. Here's the side view of Piccolo's body, and let's also do a back view, which is mostly covered by the cape. Next, let's move on to the accessory segment of this figure. I actually took the cape off. We have the shoulder pads as one piece over here, and we have the back of the cape here, which attached the back through this peg over here. So this can be considered an accessory as well for the cape. I'll show you guys more details of the cape later, but let's go over the head accessories first. Straight out of the box, we have Piccolo with this head attached. I would say it's his normal looking face. We also have his headgear on this face style. What's interesting here is we can actually take the headgear off just like this, but obviously he looks a bit weird without it. And we have only one alternative face that's also compatible with the headgear. So let's just show you guys this one. Here's the alternative face, which is a screaming face that has his eyes looking towards the left side of the camera or his own right side as the figure. So this is the only alternative face that we have also compatible with the headgear, as the next three faces that I'm gonna show you guys cannot be compatible with the headgear itself. Here we have the first of the three faces that we can use with Piccolo without the headgear. So what's interesting here is that once we do not have the headgear, we have the signature antenna design from the Namekian race in Dragon Ball here. And Piccolo over here does have these antennas, which is similar to the King Piccolo figure that we had earlier. The only difference compared to this one and the King Piccolo is that these antennas seems to be glued in place. I can't really move them around. The one from the King Piccolo figure, you can actually take them off and rotate them a little bit. These ones seems to be glued in place. But I would suggest you guys be careful with these antennas as they seem a little bit fragile and you may be able to snap it off easily by accident, so be careful with that. Here we have the second option of the head design that we can swap on without the headgear. This one may just be my personal favorite. We have his face in this battle ready expression, which is screaming. We have the nice painted details of insides of the mouth, including the tongue. We have some light blue, purple, and white for the teeth. This face for the forehead too, we have these veins popping out very aggressively, which really reminds me of the molding design details on the recently released Full Power Jiren. Finally, for the third one that we have without the headgear, we do have Piccolo in this interesting expression looking towards the side with one eye bigger than the other, and we have his teeth clenched this time. This one is also nice in that it has the molding details of the veins popping on the forehead. Moving on, let's show off the hand accessories. So straight out of the box, we have the two usual closed fist styles of the hands that we see attached here. Next up, we have a pair of these open palms. So these ones, we can use them for key blast poses. The third set of hands that we get are these sort of semi-grasping hands, and these can be used for a lot of poses, which include the scene that we see here, which Piccolo uses his beam technique in the Android saga, or they can just be used as some sort of kung fu style hands in terms of posing. And the last hand that we get is just a single one for the right side. It's a double finger styled pointing hand, and this one is clearly to represent one of Piccolo's signature attack that he has been using, which is the special beam cannon technique. Unfortunately though, we do not have any beam effects included that help us recreate this technique. Also, we have this accessory for the crossed arm style pose that I showed you guys earlier. Here's just a closer look at it, and to show you guys again, the peg over here connecting to the arms is in this round cylinder shape. It's actually quite easy to get off and on compared to the original Piccolo that we got at the very beginning of the S.H.Figuarts line. Next up, we have this small accessory which represents Piccolo's arm being ripped off, and we can just plug it in the same peg as the crossed arm accessory. So as you guys know, or fans of the Dragon Ball series, we have seen Piccolo using his regrowing the arm technique many times, in which he ripped off his arm in the series. We have this little awesome accessory finally to represent the scene, and it's actually done quite nicely. We have some details in the mold, including the blood that's coming out, done in this pink color. Here's a closer look at the ripping arm details for this attachment. So again, for the insides, we have sort of a lightish black color or a darkish brown color. We don't have too much inner details, but we can sort of see the effect over here. They probably want to keep it semi-kid friendly, so we don't have more brutal details from the insides. But the blood touch again is a nice touch, which represents the action very well. To showcase the final accessories included, we moved Piccolo to his backside. As you guys see, we have sort of a complicated peg hole design over here at the back. So when not using his cape, we have this extra purple piece, which we can just attach to the figure. Let me just do that for you guys. After attaching, we have an effect like this. So it looks quite good, and we can barely tell that this piece is removable at the back. Moving on, we also have two of these other sort of attachments included. One like this and one like this. They're pretty similar. One is longer and one is shorter according to the instruction manual. We just peg it at the double green peg holes over here at the ends. So after pegging it in, we have an effect like this. This is to be used together with the Tamashii action stands, which we can have Piccolo in air. The interesting thing here is with the shorter one compared to the longer one, it actually fits differently when we have the cape on. What I mean is that right now I just attached the back of the cape and we can have the cape down. And if I flip the cape up, you guys can see the attachment over here. But if I switch to the other one, here we have the other one, which is the longer one. We actually can't move the cape down anymore. It can only stay in this stationary up pose. So that's something to note about. And one more thing to mention is that, of course, if we cover the top part with this clothing part accessory, we can't use the peg holes anymore for the stands. Over here we have an example once I connect the back connector to one of the Tamashii action stands. So it's pretty stable and a good way to pose Piccolo in the air. Here's an example with Piccolo's longer stand attachment. So the difference that I mentioned with this one is that once attached, the cape is prevented from moving downwards. I guess this is maybe in consideration for having Piccolo posed in a flight pose with his cape up like this. Over time, gravity would make this joint loose and the cape would eventually loosen up and fall down. But with the longer attachment, it actually prevents the cape from moving at all. I'm guessing this is what the attachment is for. But then again, I'm not too sure. If you guys know, you guys can let me know down in the comment section below. Next up, let's go over the articulation segment of the review. So with the 2.0 body, with the upgrade for Piccolo over here, his articulation should be much better compared to the 1.0 version. For the head, we have a 360 rotation, looking upwards, looking downwards. So we do have a double jointed neck joint, and we can also have him tilt his head towards the side. That's very nice. And to the other side. For the arms, we can move them all the way up, a 360 rotation. We do have a bicep swivel over here and a butterfly joint, which look like this once you pull it out. Here's the elbow articulation bend. For the wrist, we have the usual 360 and side to side, up and down, depending on the angle. For the upper waist, we have a rotation, and it does move backwards and frontwards, also a little bit side to side. For the lower waist, we have a 360 rotation, a little bit of a backwards movement and forwards movement as well, and no side to side for the lower section. But combined with the top waist articulation, it is pretty good. Moving downwards for the feet and the legs, we have the kick upwards, the kick backwards, that's really good. To the sides, very good as well. Knee articulation. And finally, we have the foot over here, the 360 rotation, a little bit of a wiggle side to side and forwards and backwards, toe pivot. So that's about it for the articulation of Piccolo. Obviously, he still have the cape articulation, which I can show you guys as well. Continuing on, we have a quick showcase of the articulation with the cape. So for the bottom half of the figure, it'll be the same. The top, obviously the head will be hindered a little bit from the cape, but actually there's quite a bit of room to move the head around, so it shouldn't be too bad. As for the arms, we can move forwards this much until it's hindered by the cape, sideways this much. There is a little bit of a give because the upper shoulder parts of the cape and the lower half is two parts, so you can kind of work around with it. Obviously, it will still be blocked to a certain extent afterwards, and backwards about this much before being blocked. For the cape itself, it's a little bit loose at the shoulder pads here, so we can move it around a tiny bit, as I mentioned, and we can actually articulate the cape like this, both sides, up and down. Finally, we have backwards, going up about this high, and we can move the sides along with it to mimic some sort of a flying pose. So this is the general idea with the cape. Overall, it's pretty decent. Next up, it's time for the comparisons. As for the first comparison, let's look at the original S.H.Figuarts Piccolo. So mine does have a custom cape on it, so ignore that. But other than that, it's clearly that the new Piccolo is a lot better, not only just in articulation, but paint job as well. As we can see, the new Piccolo is in a much darker color theme overall, while the original one has more of a lighter green. And I also noticed on the spotting patch design of the Namekian skin over here, the new Piccolo is in this light pinkish color, while the original release is in more of this yellow color. Other than that, the pants as well. The original one has a lighter purple, while the newer one has a darker purple. The belt for the original is red, and the new one is a light blue. The new Piccolo seems to be a tiny bit taller as well. One more thing that I would like to mention that really makes the new Piccolo better is originally the Piccolo release seems a little bit loose in its joints, and the crossed arm section is very tight as well. So in order for us to switch the crossed arm for the original S.H.Figuarts Piccolo, it's actually quite a hassle compared to the new one, which is much easier. And when I say it is a bit loose, this is what I mean. To showcase to you guys, he seems a little bit flimsy, the older Piccolo, and it may be harder for him to stand on an uneven surface. While the new one, if I do the same thing, you guys can see his leg is not wobbling around and he's much more sturdier. So this is very nice in terms of the articulation and the sturdiness for the new Piccolo. Moving on, we have a Ultra Instinct Sign event exclusive Goku in terms of the size comparison, and Piccolo over here is taller, which makes sense. Next up, we have a bigger size SH Dragon Ball character, which is the full power Jiren. Obviously, they're around the same height, but Jiren right now is in a pose which he is not standing up straight. So take that into consideration. Here we have a Figma to compare, the Berserker class John the Ark. Here's a Mafex, which is the Deadpool. Seems like these two guys are around the same height. Alright, final thoughts on today's figure review, which is the S.H.Figuarts Piccolo. 2.0 version. All in all, this is a very nice release and a much needed one, especially the original Piccolo S.H.Figuarts figure is one of the first ones to release in the original line. This one basically implemented the new technology in terms of the articulation, the sculpt work, as well as the paint work into our new Piccolo. So I would say this is a near perfect figure to have if you're a fan of Piccolo. In terms of the negatives, it really depends on your figure. In terms of S.H.Figuarts, sometimes one figure may be better than the other one in terms of quality control, and at times there may be minor paint defects on the figure that you have. And for my Piccolo over here, there are some minor paint defects when looking closely, but it's not a big issue. Other than that, I hope S.H.Figuarts can implement a cloth cape in the future for their characters. Anyways, there goes the end of today's review. If you enjoyed the video, please support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. I would really appreciate that. As always, my friends, remember to stay young at heart. Until the next review, I'm out.